$2,199, and that is without table legs and a base. It's just the thing that sits on the table. What are we talking about? Well, you know what we're talking about. We're talking about Lord of the Rings Confrontation. This is a new crowdfunding campaign for an old game, originally a Fantasy Flight game, I believe, and it was, a lot of people will look back at it and say, oh, it was Lord of the Rings Stratego. And in many respects, it is very similar to that sort of game. You've got hidden roles. It's a two-player game only, kind of chess-like, where you're moving pieces around and the other player doesn't know which pieces are what on your side of the board. But it's obviously far more thematic than that. There are powers and everything like that. That game, I don't even remember when it came out. I'm putting the year down below here.
It was a while ago.
It was a while ago, but this newest edition that they have on GameFound right now has made, as of time of recording, I think somewhere close to 500,000 euros, I think. I don't know if it's in euros or dollars, but a lot of money. And one of the versions is this wooden, hand-painted, 3D typography on top of the map sort of version that's $2,199. And then that's just the part that sits on the table.
Yeah, this is kind of crazy. We wanted to break this down because, for one thing, this was not a game that was on my bingo card for getting a deluxe edition.
That's true.
And not only is it getting a deluxe edition, if you're looking at these photos, it is maybe one of the most deluxe editions we've ever seen. Now, this is not a new thing for Lord of the Rings. The One Ring got that giant, book that sells for like $3,000.
You're talking about War of the Ring?
War of the Ring, yeah. That got that giant version. So.
How much was that? Do you happen
to
know?
I think that was like 3,000, or maybe now. I don't know what it was when it first came out.
I think when it first came out, it wasn't anything like that. I think that
nowadays it's huge.
If you're going to buy it from someone who owns it, which are the only versions that exist, yes, people are selling that for thousands of dollars, but it didn't initially sell for, I don't even think, $21.99, for example.
This one is, because this is literally... Like the way they position this, so you can buy the game, which you could just buy the game.
Standard edition.
Standard version.
$50. This is effectively your standard edition board game, although still nicer than the original because the stands, while not painted, are these kind of nice ornate stands you put these tiles in. It's a cool looking board game.
And then it goes up from there all the way to that giant box, what David mentioned. And, there might be a lot of people that get that box. And it's this giant box that's got all the storage in there.
There's not going to be a lot of people.
Well, some people.
As of right now, there's 100 people on the planet Earth.
That's still pretty good for that box. But what David was alluding to earlier is that box itself, they're selling a separate pedestal that turns that from a box that sits on your table to like literally its own like end table that's decorative that you can like then play Lord of the Rings Confrontation on, which I don't know. I mean, I would love it, but it's very expensive.
So let's talk about this for a second. And I know a lot of people would love it. And I don't want to poo-poo on that. I don't want to yuck on your yum. But I'll say this.
It's a cool idea.
And I don't want to gloss over that mid-range version. There's a middle-of-the-road version that's $120. And it's still quite nice, right? There's storage boxes for the pieces. The standees are painted. There's a lot of nice things going on here. It just doesn't have that sort of like wooden base and all
3D board, which is magnetic and all that stuff.
However, I think it's a very, very good version. My guess it's the version that most people, I didn't check to see which ones were backed, but most people are probably going to go in for the $120
If you're going to get the game, that's probably like, we're all board gamers. We know how it is. It is
supposed to be, I have never played it, but I am an old fan of Stratego. Like Stratego is one of my first board games when I was a kid. So the concept has a place in my heart. And from what I understand, it is a very good game, a very exciting and interesting two-player head-to-head sort of experience. But when you get to spending $2,100, let's just say $2,200, $2,200, close to $3,000 if you want the base.
Yeah, if you want it as its own standalone table.
And my assumption is those 100, and it doesn't come with the $2,200. But my guess is what percentage of those 100 people right now that have backed it do you think are also going to spend the $499?
Oh, you might as well
for the base. Like if you're already in for $2,200.
You might as well get the base. And
what's
also,
$499?
I think we're going to talk about this a little bit as we kind of move away from that and talk about Lord of the Rings as a whole. But that edition, it's not about the game, right? Like, and I think it's not about the game. People are backing this. They might not even care about the game, but as a piece of like Lord of the Rings, like memorabilia or like whatever, this map is insane. Like this 3D map, it's got all of these like landmarks. Like it's literally like a full topographical map of Lord of the Rings. I think there are fans and collectors that might buy that, even if there was no board game attached. It's a pretty cool thing.
I suppose it is abstracted, obviously, because it's a very small map. So the map itself, from what I've been told by hardcore Lord of the Rings fans, is not exactly
A 1-to-1
accurate
right.
representation. Plus, they've got those big round divots in them for the
But
pieces.
it's cool,
to
is all
hold
I'm
up.
saying. It's
It
a
is-
cool piece of,
it is cool.
of merchandise.
But I do want to get a little bit cynical here. For $2,100 or $2,200, that is a lot for what is effectively, if you've ever seen, and Ryan's going to laugh at me here, that deluxe edition Monopoly board. It's quite
I know
similar.
what you're talking about, though.
It's quite similar. That Monopoly board that's like wooden. It's about,
It comes in
maybe
that big box.
5 to 6 inches thick.
Yeah.
It's a wooden thing that sits on the table. It has drawers that you pull out that hold the money. There's drawers that hold the pieces. So in many respects, this is sort of the Confrontation's version of that type of presentation. Now, it's elevated. That is still mass produced. This is handmade. Like I don't know if the degree to which the table is handmade, but it is very custom made. It is hand painted. All of the maps are hand painted. So this is not just some sort of mass production thing. So I get that.
It's expensive.
But part of me feels like, the 3D edition of Terraforming Mars.
Yeah, the big box 3D.
That's
This is much nicer, but still.
It is much nicer in that it has a big hunk of wood underneath it.
Well, and the
But in terms of the map, I'm surprised they don't have a version that has the 3D map, even painted, but without all the wood
that just sits
and all
flat
of
on
the
the table,
table
just the
that sits on the
3D
table
board.
for $300.
Yeah.
That Monopoly game, by the way, is $300.
I
Right?
mean, yeah, this might be the only time you hear us talking about Monopoly on Man vs. Meeple, but I get everything you're saying. And also for me, looking at this, it is a table, but it's a small table. It's like a card. It's like not even a card table size. Like it's like an end table. If you want like a nice end table, but for that same amount of money, you can literally buy like a Rathskeller's whole gaming table system.
Well, maybe. I don't know about that.
For the Kickstarter. Well, now we're not talking about other Kickstarters, but like for $2,000, you could get a pretty nice table.
Sure.
Like that's, you got to kind of, it's not going to have all the cool Lord of the Rings, stuff. And
Yeah,
you can't play the 3D version of Confrontation, but I mean, maybe someday they do come out with just.
Yeah, but you could get one of those tables and the $50 of Confrontation.
That's true.
And you could play Confrontation on your nice new table.
That's true.
But with that cynicism aside, we also wanted to talk about all of the Lord of the Rings things, because Lord of the Rings, and this is an interesting thing to me.
Yeah.
Obviously, Lord of the Rings has been a big fantasy property for decades and decades. In board gaming, it's had a rich history in board gaming.
Yep.
We just talked about some of that. The property, obviously, when the movies came out, and more recently they had the Amazon thing, which wasn't well received. But the movies were huge at the time. One of them, I think Return of the King, won the Academy Awards.
It's been a long time since that happened.
That was early 2000s. But more recently, in gaming, we've seen a flurry of Lord of the Rings games, and might I add, amazing Lord of the Rings games.
Great games.
Like we grew up in a day, or I grew up in a day, you did too, where a lot of IP licensed stuff was generally trash.
Sure, we've talked about this before.
We have talked about this.
It's getting better.
It is getting better in general, but I can't say enough how much these games that have come out. We're talking about Lord of the Rings, Duel for Middle-earth, which we've played here on the channel. We've talked about phenomenal version of the Seven Wonders Duel system.
Best version.
So much so that I think we both agree the best version of Duel. Even if maybe you're not a fan of Lord of the Rings even, but if you are, easily
So much
a
better.
great experience. Then this came out, the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game, which is better than The Crew, in my opinion.
And
like it's very thematic, very well done, incredibly well produced.
Say beautiful.
It is beautiful. I'll say beautiful. I'll say it. There, I said
it
it.
has a great look to it. And it's just the Fellowship of the Ring trading card game, which makes our trick taking game, which makes me think we could see ones based on the other books.
Oh,
eventually.
I'm sure we will. Not to mention, and we don't have this on the table, but oh, how I hope that we soon will.
Hopefully soon.
Fate of the Fellowship, which is from Matt Leacock, and it is a pandemic adjacent game.
Pandemic style something. It's not quite the pandemic system.
It's not being branded under the pandemic system. I think wasn't World of
All
Warcraft?
of the rest, World of Warcraft,
and Star Wars. They still said pandemic on them somewhere, right?
Yeah, pandemic system or something.
This one does not. And from what I have heard, with the way the game works is if you've played Pandemic, obviously a lot of it's going to be familiar, but there's enough changes and some things that are new that make it feel like its own thing that really embraces the theme of the universe, which is what we were so impressed with on Duel.
Well, yeah, this game, I mean, you can play it on BGA right now if you can't wait and you want to get like a taste of it. You can play it on BGA, but what's weird to me, and this might be a controversial thing that I'm about to say, we have all these great Lord of the Rings games.
It's been nice knowing everybody if we're about to get canceled.
I would just say, honestly, this is how I feel. Right now, Lord of the Rings is maybe at the lowest level of popularity in pop culture that it has ever been. People love to hate on the Rings of Power show, which I actually enjoy, but I get like people are like done with Lord of the Rings in a lot of eras, and yet at the same time we have the best Lord of the Rings games we've ever had.
Well,
it's kind of a weird thing.
Even if we say that it's not at its lowest, it's not at its highest.
It might be at its lowest.
The property itself, regardless of the hate, is what I mean. Take away the hate for Rings of Power, and you're still left with people like, okay, Lord of the Rings. Okay, what's going on with Lord of the Rings? Nothing is going on with Lord of the Rings.
We got a new movie coming out, though.
Except the what?
We got a new Lord of the Rings movie coming out soon.
Probably a decade from now. Seriously.
I hope it doesn't take them a decade.
I follow movies and I don't even know what he's talking about.
The Hunt for Golem. You think it's going to take a decade? Maybe it will take a decade to make that.
And it's we'll see how that goes. But what we do have going on for us right now are these games, and they're probably some of the best Lord of the Ring games that have been put out.
They're some of the best games that have been put out. That's why we wanted to.
That's fair.
Confrontation is still a great, take it down to its basic form, and we say it's advanced Stratego. Yeah, I love Stratego, and I love Lord of the Rings, just like I love Seven Wonders Duel. You put these things together, and to me, it makes them better.
It's interesting that you bring Confrontation into it like that, because I was going to talk about these games as, just play these.
Well, yeah, that's
just play these.
Don't play Stratego, play Confrontation.
No. I mean, just play this, not Confrontation.
Play all of them.
Like you've got, I've got, even with Fate of the Fellowship, I've got what, $150 maybe?
Yeah.
Less than $150 worth of games. 3 different Lord of the Rings games, all for about the same price as the medium version of Confrontation. Now, I'm not here to say don't go play Confrontation. If you're involved with Confrontation, don't write us in the comments saying, what are you guys doing trashing us? I'm all for it. But I'm just telling you, it's a great time to celebrate Lord of the Rings, and there's a lot of stuff to play right now on the table.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody involved in this project is looking at this as anything like this is
they're not cashing in.
They're not trying to cash in, but this is not for everybody. This is a very specific niche group of people.
Yeah, it's a passion project, and if you like it, you like it. And I'll probably get in on it. I'm probably going to get the middle of the road version.
That's what I would do.
I'll probably jump in on this because of my love of Stratego. I think it's a really cool thing that they're doing. We're always fans here on the channel of people taking things and making deluxe versions of them. Speaking of which, there's a Agricola campaign going on right now with a nice deluxe version. I'm a huge fan of the Castles of Burgundy one that Awakened Realms
I like these deluxe editions, and I hope that someday in my life I get to see this table and play on it in real life. I don't need to own it, but I would love to get to play on it someday.
I don't care.
Oh, it'd just be a cool experience.
I'm all for the middle of the road one. That top of the line one, the price aside, it's just a little too garish for me. It's all rich wood mahogany. It's just not my style.
It would look really good in a library, especially
Bruce Wayne's library maybe.
Is Bruce Wayne a Lord of the Rings fan?
Probably.
I feel like he probably would have been, right?
I'm pretty sure. If it hasn't been said before, I'm going to say it right now. It's canon. Bruce Wayne, huge Lord of the Rings fan.
You know that there's a copy of Lord of the Rings in his library, for sure.
We've sufficiently gone off the rails now. So if you have any questions at all about Confrontation, about any of these other Lord of the Rings games, except for Fellowship or Fate of the Fellowship, because I don't know too much about that.
But
even if you have questions about that, ask them in the comments below. We'll get down there and answer whatever we can. Until next time, make sure everyone has fun at the table, and we'll see you then.